Meetings in order. For those of the public in the room who wish to speak this evening, there is a sign-up sheet. Please make sure you are on that sign-up sheet. For those on the phone, there will be the opportunity to make comments as well. With that, welcome to the March 26th public hearing for the Board of Estimate and Tax on the City of Norwalk operating budget. Before we begin tonight, Madam Clerk, can I get you to call a roll, please?
Mayor Harry W. Rillen,
Here.
Mr. Ed Abrams,
Here.
Mr. Ed Camacho,
Here.
Mr. Kendrick Constant,
Here.
Mr. Troy Jelleret,
Here.
Mr. Ari Kasimis,
Here.
and Miss Ann Yang.
Here. All right,
Is everybody?
thank you. So we will begin tonight with public comment. We will try and do this such that we alternate between speaker in the room and speaker on the phone if we have. Tom, I'll ask you to kind of help coordinate this. To the point made earlier, once we go to someone on the phone, if you could let the next person who's in the room planning to speak be aware, just so we can be efficient with time and bring you all down quickly. For those of you on the phone who wish to make comments this evening, you can do so by raising your hand in the chat. We have somebody monitoring that and we'll call you out to speak. So with that, Tom, let's go ahead and begin public comment.
Yeah, so you want to do what we've done on previous ones, three in-house, three Zoom back?
No, we're gonna do one-on-one,
Okay,
please, and each individual will be given 3 minutes to speak. You will be alerted at 2 minutes and 30 seconds as to time left.
Okay.
Let's move ahead.
okay, yep, Barbara Smith is first.
Good evening, Barbara Smith, 4 Brook Hill Lane. Thank you all for your service to the city and the hard work that you face every budget season. Mayor, I'd like to start by thanking you so much for your support, your very public support for the Community Resource Hub. I would like to just say a few words on behalf of the Hub, which is an award-winning program that has helped thousands of vulnerable Norwalk residents. I came and spoke to you last year about the program, hoping to bring on, 1 or 2 members of the staff, that had been previously funded through the Ritter Family Foundation and the Per and Astrid Heidenreich Family Foundation. There was the original agreement that they would fund it for 3 years. If the program was successful, the city would take it over. We, really had those budget concerns last year, and they agreed to do it for 1 more year. But I really do want to talk to you about how very, very important this program is. And I was surprised to hear that there were questions about it and the possibility of a consultant being considered for this program, largely because this is about people and the family navigators, as we refer to them, those 3 positions. There are multi-language people who can, speak to people one-on-one and help them to get the services that they need, move them on to what they need. So I do hope that you will fully fund the Community Resource Hub. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Let's go to someone, the first speaker on the phone, please.
The first speaker from home will be Alex.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I'm here with my husband, and our names are David and Alexis McCarthy. We'll both be speaking tonight on behalf of the Board of Education budget. First of all, we want to say good evening and thank you for all your hard work on behalf of our Norwalk community. And thank you for inviting us to take time to comment tonight. We live at 35 Fox Run Road, and we're both here tonight to speak on behalf of funding the Board of Education budget and funding it to the maximum level possible. We have 2 children at Wolf Pit Elementary School. They are immersed in wonderful programming led by caring teachers, administrators, and staff. We urge you to pass a 4% increase at a minimum and hopefully higher to allow these wonderful programs to continue, with as many of these professionals as possible retaining their jobs. We volunteer regularly at Wolf Pit, and we see how leanly staffed the schools already are. We regularly see teachers, staff, and administrators jumping in to help situations as they arise throughout the building throughout the day. Even a 4% budget increase will require elimination of a number of these key professionals, and our children will lose truly great educators and experiences.
Schools here in Norwalk have built amazing programming and now draw new residents to Norwalk, increasing property values as buyers compete to live in district. This was not always the case. I grew up in Norwalk, went through the public school system, and have lived here my entire life. We sit here tonight as concerned parents who have felt sick over the cuts our school is already facing. And we also sit here tonight as the owners of a local business. We understand the impact tax increases may have on local businesses, but we believe that the benefits of fully funding the schools and continuing their new trajectory of excellence far outweigh any costs. In my line of business, I've had numerous occasions to discuss Norwalk Public Schools, and we don't want to risk the positive reputation and accompanying boost our schools currently bring to Norwalk. Thank you.
Thank you both. Next one.
Michael Paris.
Good evening, members of the Board of Estimate and Taxation. I'm here tonight to speak in support of the public libraries. My understanding is that the board, I'm asking the board to reinstate the $50,000 that was, I believe, was deleted from the budget for this year. And I'm a user. I'm a dedicated user of the library. We moved here from New York about 30 years ago and didn't know much, but the library was a welcome home for us. Many wonderful experiences. I know my children are 32 and 28 now. When they were young kids, we did many activities at the library. And now I have a grandchild who's 4 years old, and I take her to what's it called? Little Legos at 4 p.m. at the library. So I know many times have changed now with libraries. It used to be about books. Now it's about internet and movies and stuff like that. But I think the library that I know, it has adapted to these changes and it has modernized and many great activities. Recently, they had a program with the son of the sculpture of Mount Rushmore. He made a presentation, he had a book, and it was a wonderful program. So it's not just about books. So I think, and the staff at the library is very dedicated and very helpful, sincere, and very polite. And I believe that they need to be paid in order to keep good people. You know, we have to pay them. I asked the board to reinstate the $50,000 that I believe was cut from the budget to support the library. I respectfully asked the board to reinstate that $50,000. And I want to thank you for this opportunity to express my views.
Thank you very much. Next on the phone.
Next person at home is David C.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name is David Cahill of 14 Broadview Terrace, and I'm a proud parent of 2 NPS students. I've previously addressed the Board of Ed and Common Council about the urgent need to fund our schools. And many of us are profoundly displeased with the current Board of Ed and the superintendent for their repeated failure to negotiate effectively. Negotiation means offering options that lead to a compromise. A one and done submission of the budget is not negotiation. We, the parents and taxpayers, shouldn't have to scrutinize their budgets. We should trust our elected officials to fulfill their responsibilities. Serving on the Board of Ed is serious business, not a social club. During this crisis, central office should be actively communicating progress and posting a revised budget to the public, not goofy, unnecessary promo videos on Instagram. Their lack of seriousness won't be forgotten, and I plan to vote my frustrations at the ballot box. Now, sadly, it feels the opportunity for negotiation has passed. 4% is now the best we can hope for, knowing the superintendent plans to take it out directly on schools by cutting staff and programs that benefit our children. We now look to you, the BET, to do the right thing and approve the 4% budget cap. Any further reduction would be devastating. Now, if your calculations don't support 4%, please don't punish our children. Find the money elsewhere. Using the rainy day fund for 4% isn't kicking the can down the road. Don't use the fear of a credit rating downgrade as an excuse. This is exactly what rainy day funds are for. Spend less on expensive murals and frivolous land purchases if you must. Without well-funded schools, these beautification efforts paint a dishonest picture of what we have to offer. Now, I moved here from New York City 14 years ago because I saw great potential in Norwalk. I chose this beautifully diverse community as the place where I wanted to start my family. The city's current apartment building blitz aims to attract young professionals and their tax dollars, hoping they'll fall in love with Norwalk and stay to raise a family just as I did. But a community's worth is ultimately measured by the quality of its schools. Those tax dollars will quickly move to neighboring towns if you continue to slash school budgets, undermining Norwalk's future and possibility. So do the right thing. Please pass the proposed 4% budget cap. And if we can find more, please consider raising it. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate all you do.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next in the room,
Lisa Britton.
Thank you. Lisa Britton, 19 Shorefront Park. Thank you all for your service, but as the saying goes, the buck stops with you. I have 3 points to make tonight: MPS administration costs, ECS revenue, and tax abatements. School administration cost is drowning the city and every taxpayer. Since 2020, administration has doubled by 168 employees, while teacher and para classroom support is flat to slightly down. Student enrollment is flat. ECS funding compared to Danbury is $38 million less. We approve and forfeit millions in property tax abatements, as the council did last night and 2 weeks ago. Again, in the 27 years I've lived here, we have a school budget gap, but today it's much worse. Since education makes up 54% of the budget, I've provided comparison numbers from 18 and 19 and the 23-24 school years, as reported to the state. I've also included a city map of the neighborhoods and areas qualifying for tax abatements. The city and taxpayers are struggling with school administrative costs, while reading and math scores and teacher morale have hit an all-time low. Student demographics have changed. We have 295 fewer Black students and 593 less white students, with ELL students making up the difference. With such drastic change in 6 years, one would think resources would go to teachers and the classroom. Instead, there have been too many vanity projects and increased administration. It's not just what you spend, but how you spend it. My second point, Norwalk is the 8th largest contributor to income taxes in Hartford. We send $180 million to Hartford with roughly 444,000 tax returns and millions in sales tax each year. We get back just $15 million for our schools, despite 70% students being high need. Our ELL enrollment is double the state average. I provided ECS revenue for what the state considers our peer districts, as well as the cities getting 10 times more revenue per student than we do. Danbury, our closest comparison, gets 53 million, a difference of 38 million, or 16% of what will be our school budget this year. We have unsustainable development. A decade of tax abated development in large-scale apartments has meant more money for developers and private equity, but less income for the city and more expense for taxpayers. We don't have a corporate base. Merit 7 is practically empty. And our largest employer, the city, with over 3,700 employees, are 85% reliant on property taxes, 70% coming from
30
residents.
seconds remaining.
The map highlighting the enterprise and opportunity zones from MLK to Route 1 is scary. That's our bank account. Do we know how many properties receive abatements and how many are in the future pipeline? In closing, you're the financial board. Are we on a sustainable path as a city? Please review the data I've shared with you, reduce the budget, stop the tax abatements, and get more ECS for our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next on the phone,
The next person at home is Joseph K.
Hi, this is Josh Goldstein. I don't know why it has another name on here, actually with my work colleague. 22 Princess Pine, speaking regarding the Community Resource Hub. I first want to thank the Board of Estimate Taxation for their work throughout this process. Obviously, that is a extensive and tough budget process, and we, the Common Council, greatly appreciate your work. The Community Resource Hub is a vital program, and I wanted to speak along with my colleague, Council President Barbara Smith, in support of the Community Resource Hub. Given the national climate, in addition to the vital services that the Community Resource Hub has already provided, I think it is vital that we continue to have these programs and have these navigators serve as a beacon and a source for many community members who fall well under the ALICE threshold and whose necessity for these services really couldn't be more important. I feel very strongly that this program has been a vital good for the city, and I would implore you to fund it in the upcoming budget. And I again thank you for your work and look forward to continue working with you as a member of the council. Have a good night.
thank you very much. Next in the room,
Is it Wilner Joseph or Joseph Wilner? It's Wilner. Okay, I got it right then. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me here. My name is Wilma Joseph. I reside in District B, and I am here to express my deep concerns about the city's operating budget and Commissioner Yang's comment on fair housing officer. First, I want to address the Norwalk Public Library. This institution is more than just books. It's a vital resource for working families, students, job seekers, and seniors. Yet its staff, including part-time workers, have gone 10 years without raises and are not receiving competitive pay compared in neighboring towns. Part-time employees don't even receive benefits. How can we expect to retain skilled, dedicated staff when they are undervalued and underpaid? The library is a cornerstone of education and opportunity, particularly for Black and working class residents who rely on its free resources, job assistance, and community programming. It's time Norwalk gives it the funding it deserves. On housing, this budget does not do enough to address affordable and displacement. Rents keep rising and too many families, especially Black and working class families, are struggling to stay in Norwalk. If we do not invest in affordable housing and rental assistance, we will continue to see families pushed out of the city. Budget cuts should not come at the cost of housing stability. Yet year after year, we underfund critical programs while adding the general fund. Finally, I want to address Commissioner Yang's comments on fair housing officer. She suggested that Norwalk is no longer needs the fair housing officer because we've moved on. But racism and discrimination have not magically disappeared. I have personally witnessed and experienced the barriers that Black residents face in housing, unemployment, and public services. To suggest that protection are no longer necessary ignores the reality of this city. The fair housing officer exists because discrimination is real, and removing it would be a step backwards. Norwalk must do better. I urge the BET to prioritize fair funding for the library, investments in housing, and maintaining protection for residents facing discrimination. Budgets are about values that make sure we
30
fund
seconds
what
remaining.
truly matters. Thank you.
thank you very much. Next on the phone, please.
The next person is Sarah A.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Alexander and I reside at 24 Friendly Road. 6 years ago, we moved our family here from Brooklyn. I have a second grader at Wolfett Elementary and a 4-year-old who we hope to one day join the ranks of NPS. I'm here this evening to implore you to pass a minimum of a 4% increase to the Board of Education budget. In addition to speaking tonight advocating for the incredible educators of every variety whose future is currently uncertain, I want to comment on the process as a whole and my disappointment in the lack of transparency from this board, the Board of Education, Common Council, Mayor Rilling, and Superintendent Estrella. I hope you each feel on a deep level this entire community holds you responsible for this budget crisis. As I learn more from families who have been here upwards of 10 years or more, they all say the same thing. Quote, they knew this was coming and did nothing. Mr. Mayor, is this the legacy you want for the city you claim to hold so dear? Board members, with all of your qualified years of budget experience and support from the mayor himself who appointed each of you, I, a tax-paying citizen who will be directly affected along with thousands of other families and children because of this budget crisis, is ashamed of this city, which is so sad. I'm not ashamed of the educators who work day in and day out to support our children, regardless of the reckless actions taken by this board, which has forced all of us to take time out of our lives to hold you accountable. All of those people work very hard. I challenge each one of you to go to every NPS location. Look the children in the eyes, work with the educators. Do better. We are trusting you. We have to. And if you do not help, we will vote with our feelings. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Jody Tatler?
My name is Jody Sattler. I live at 17 Highland Avenue. I'm the co-chair of the School Governance Council at Brian McMahon High School. I'm here to advocate for the 4% budget increase for the school budget, but I am also here to ask the BET to prioritize any Board of Ed spending to focus on classroom teachers. I know the BET has gone line by line for every other city department, and you can have some influence. The principals are being asked to cut 121 teaching positions, which would be detrimental to our students. All funds allocated to our students are important, but we are in a financial environment where we must make some tough decisions. Here are my 7 suggestions on expenses that can be cut to save classroom teachers. Number 1, we cannot afford school choice with guaranteed busing. Transportation costs are expected to increase by 1.15 million, and busing should not be a priority over classroom teachers. It is also an inconsistent policy for other students in Norwalk. We currently restrict busing for kids who live too close to schools. For example, it is required that you live more than 2 miles from school to qualify for a bus to Brian McMahon High School, and there's only parking available for seniors. Parents and students currently have to figure out their own transportation to their district school, and out-of-district students can do the same. Number 2, there's a review called the School Quality Review. It is a heavy burden on teachers' time and takes them away from their students. The SQR administrator makes over $200,000 a year plus benefits. That is just one example of a high-cost employee who doesn't work directly with students. The school budget shows an increase in education administrators from 22 positions to 28 positions. Number 3, catered food, training trips, gift cards, logo swag, printed publications, and other nice-to-have items must go. These items may be relatively small, but they add up, and this spending sends a terrible message in the face of layoffs. There is over $300,000 requested for travel alone. Number 4, the wage increase per employee contract is 2.5%. COLA is also 2.5% for 2025. No one else should get a raise higher than 2.5%. Number 5, we can't afford satellite learning locations. We have space in schools that should be utilized before we pay rent, a security guard, and other staff at off-campus locations. 2 examples are the Family Center and the Future Ready program. As property services costs are going up over $1 million this year, we have to cut out these extra locations. The Future Ready program costs over $750,000 in grant money that could be reallocated. We also have a new elementary school that only has 4 grades. We should be utilizing that space instead of paying rent in other buildings.
30 seconds remaining.
Number 6, we need to put a freeze on all outside consultants that cost the district $5 million. Number 7, there was an efficiency study done, and there was good recommendations like combining functions such as purchasing 2 human resources departments. We have 2 communication directors and 2 IT departments. My request to the BET is to not only set the budget to 4%, but please give direction on spending that favors classroom teachers who directly impact student access. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker on the phone, please.
Next speaker at home is Diane L.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
You can. Okay, thank you. I've been having some connection. For the record, my name is Diane Lauricella, and I live at 21 Little Fox Lane. For years, I have been speaking about this operating budget. Today, I wanted to consolidate some of what I've said for years. First of all, I wanted to thank you for the virtual abilities and your work. One thing I wanted to say is I was very disappointed because we're trying to get the public to appreciate more what government is about. There was no link on the web page or the operating budget agenda. There could have been a link that would shoot people right to seeing the line-by-line operating budget. There was nothing on the homepage of our website, and I urge you to announce these the elements of that make up the budget, because there's usually the educational group, and then there are people like me that actually read the other parts of the budget. So today I wanted to limit to expenses. I believe that I do believe that I could see a 4% for the Board of Ed, but if and when and only if the following expenses are cut and the following revenues are added. First, for revenues, we need a full-time grant coordinator. Jared, I know you said you're thinking about it, but we have left millions of dollars on the table and other towns eat our lunch. We need a full-time grant coordinator and let our people in the departments just assist in the lingo instead of doing the grants and following the grants and finding the grants. We also need to increase enforcement for blight, zoning, health, and the money that they could rake in. Under expenses, I think there should be across the board cuts for electricity and gas, which has just gone up. And that is because we are not in our public buildings taking renewable energy seriously. In fact, we switch from oil tanks, which I'm in favor of, but we immediately go to gas. Fracked gas, instead of looking to see whether that particular building could look at renewables where we are creating electrons, meaning we have reduced electricity and gas. Those are very expensive items for the
30
Board of
seconds
Ed
remaining.
as well as our city. I ask that ECD in the business development, we have seen what happens when some of the staff does not feel it is their duty to save money. I saw this with the wasteful West Avenue mural and the money given to the Arts Commission, who I like very much. I think they were given very bad advice by the staff. Lastly, under Board of Ed, I still think it's too top heavy, and I think, as the previous speaker said, the money should go to the teachers and the paraprofessionals. They said they're going to move the Welcome Center, which I've talked about for ever since it started. I want to make sure it happens because we have plenty of room in our buildings. Why should we be renting? And I thank you for your time. Please take this seriously, and please make sure that you let people know where the budget can be found in any homepage and documents like agendas. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Next in the room, please.
Amanda Trimboli.
Hello, members of the board and Mayor Rilling. My name is Amanda Trimboli and I live at 12 Cider Lane. I am here tonight to ask you to approve or increase the 4% recommended BOE budget that the mayor and common council proposed. Last year, the recommended 4% budget was capped at 3%, but this year is not the same as last. Even 4% will devastate our schools. The budget cuts the district is facing are way more dire this year than in the last few years. There are 120 teachers' jobs on the line, and our kids cannot afford to be the victims of these cuts. I realize that $242 million is not a shoestring budget and not an insignificant amount of money to invest in our schools, but with the way that everything is inflated these days, the district needs as much money as they can get to support our student population in more ways than one. I suggested last week to the BOE that it would be a great idea for all of them to sit in our schools and observe what goes on in a day. I think it would be great for all of you to do the same, so you can really understand how many staff members it takes for a school day to function well. In my opinion, there aren't enough staff members in the buildings, but unfortunately, we all know that we are going to have to face having fewer staff in all the schools next year. Who suffers? Our kids. COVID was a time that I hope that none of us have to live through again. It was also an incredibly challenging time for our kids, especially in school. I give the district a lot of credit for the fact that they had school in person because we were one of the few districts in the state that did this. Do you realize that in about 7 to 8 years, our COVID kids will have graduated high school? We are still very much in this and feeling the effects from this, and it's not going away anytime soon. The district was forced to create jobs with COVID dollars a few years ago because the city flat funded them, and now all those COVID funds are gone. This created a huge problem that has had a lasting snowball effect. Going forward, I implore you all to find a way to work cohesively with the Common Council, the mayor, the BOE, and the public. We need more discourse throughout the year to come to better solutions on how to deal with these challenges. It seems that this discourse just happens around budget season. I didn't grow up in Norwalk, but I consider Norwalk my home. It's also home to my 2 children who are in elementary school and have many more years ahead of them in this lovely city. I have realized how generational Norwalk truly is. Many people have grown up here and then raised their own families and so on and so forth.
Remaining.
Not many people really move because they love it here, and I hope to have that for my own kids. If you lower the cap, you will be failing our kids, the future generation of Norwalk. Please don't fail them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next online.
The next person on line is Nicole A.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Ayers. I live at 7 Ohio Avenue, and I am also the chairperson of the Community Service Committee for the Common Council. Thank you, all the members of the BET, for your service and willingness to hear the public during this participation. I am here to speak to the Community Service Hub and some comments that were made by commissioners. I need to remind us that almost a decade ago, Norwalk had NEON, which was our accident agency. And through that organization, a lot of residents received a lot of different services, from childcare to Head Start to energy assistance, food security, so on. And NEON disappeared over 10 years ago. And we had nothing. Our residents were forced to go to Bridgeport and Stanford to get services that they needed to help them live in Norwalk. And then we got the Community Service Hub and the navigators. And we were able to partner with the nonprofit sector to help us start this all over again. But we made an agreement that that would not be forever. And it is now time for the city to take on that cost of continuing the services that are provided by the Community Service Hub. It was suggested or asked by one of the commissioners about a consultant. In my personal life, in my private life, I work in the nonprofit industry. And to offer us to pay a consultant, which most consultants are around $120,000 to do the work that we are already doing, seems to be questionable in us trying to save money. These are valued resources that if we did not have the navigators, our residents would then be forced to go out of Norwalk, Many of our residents do not own cars. Many of our residents rely on public transportation. We are giving a service to those people who have no other way but to come centrally located to City Hall and receive services. So I would ask all you good people who are volunteers, who are giving of your time and your talent here
30 seconds remaining.
to please reconsider and understand that we must keep the community service hub and those navigators. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next in the room,
Elise Williams.
Good evening. My name is Elise Williams. I live at 24 Mid-Rocks Drive. I am the mother of 2 children, one who receives special education at NECC and another who's in 1st grade at Wolf Pit. I am here to advocate for the Board of Education budget. As a taxpayer, I understand the importance of keeping taxes affordable. But as a parent, especially a child with special needs, I also recognize the significant consequences of funding our education system. Norwalk is a highly desirable place for young families, and I would hate to see the programs we have made in recent years undone. While I understand the 4% increase in the BOE's budget might seem like a modest increase, it actually represents a substantial decrease in funding, especially when accounting for inflation and the rising costs of everyday life. We have all witnessed firsthand the increasing prices of health insurance, of groceries, transportation, and countless other expenses. The school district faces these same challenges. As an accountant, what stands out to me in the BOE's fiscal year 25-26 operating budget are the actual price increases for required services. Food services are up 10.6%, busing by 10%, special education 13.6%, and fringe benefits such as health insurance premiums by 18.2%. These are all significant portions of the budget and rising much faster than the proposed 4% increase. To maintain these essential services, there are cuts being proposed which will be devastating to our schools. So I ask, how do we tell a small school like Wolf Pit to cut $450,000 from its budget? A school that plays a vital role in raising the children in our community, who fosters an environment where every child feels supported, valued, and empowered to succeed. What will this mean for my daughter's education? It could lead to the loss of irreplaceable staff, assistant VPs, math and literacy coaches, student counselors, and performing arts teachers. Teachers already managing diverse classrooms with rising numbers of MLL, currently 23%, and SPED learners, 19%, will have to deal with even larger class sizes and fewer support staff. This could lead to less personalized attention and greater reliance on electronic devices. Cuts to support staff, including paraprofessionals, can lead to difficulties with providing the legally required services in an IEP and loss of learning focus, as teachers will be required to
30
take
seconds
the
remaining.
lead on behavioral interventions. Cuts to specialists can lead to larger group sizes and decreased gains in student progress. These challenges will not only be seen in the classroom, but also in the courtroom, as parents request costly out-of-district placements, often $100,000 or more per student per year. As costs continue to rise, are we willing to underfund our education system? At what point do we decide that investing in our children's future is worth the price? We cannot afford to let education be the casualty of budget cuts. I urge you to please get creative and find funding beyond the additional 4% cap to ensure that we can continue to support all of these children in the district. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
thank you. Next online, please.
Next person is Paul F.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Paul Fox, and I live at 11 Hanford Place in South Norwalk. First of all, I'd like to raise the issue that neither up-to-date line item budget recommendations nor minutes of the March 20th meeting were published prior to this hearing, making it difficult for concerned residents to get a clear picture of what conclusions the board has reached so that we may make relevant comments. I'm speaking tonight primarily on the proposed cuts to the operating budget for Norwalk Transit District. As someone who depends on the bus and rides nearly every day, I appreciate the important role that NTD plays in providing accessible, affordable public transit to many Norwalk residents. At the first budget hearing in September, I was among over a dozen people who spoke in favor of prioritizing funding to transportation alternatives, including NTD, so I'm dismayed to see the board recommending the opposite by proposing a 33% cut to the operating grant for the transit district. Many Norwalk residents rely on bus service, including myself. In fact, approximately 4,200 people use NTD services daily, and as Norwalk grows, I expect that number will increase. Over the past year, Norwalk Transit District has completed a long overdue comprehensive operational analysis and route redesign, and are committed to implementing it this year as required to make way for Wall Street streetscape improvements planned by TMP. This operating grant is crucial to help NTD build and retain capacity required to meet this challenging timeline for a major route overhaul. Because NTD has few sources for operating funding, it relies on grants like this to maintain its operations. This is the worst time to be recommending a sudden cut to NTD's operating funding, the particular year when they will have to face their greatest operating challenges in decades. I would urge the board to recommend that the NTD operational grant be fully funded and not put the reliable operation of our bus service in jeopardy. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Next in the room, please, Ellie Cahill.
Good evening. My name is Allison Cahill, and I live at 14 Broadview Terrace. I'm both a parent of 2 elementary school students and a teacher in Norwalk Public Schools. Wearing both hats gives me a unique perspective on the real needs of our schools, and I can say with full confidence, setting the school budget cap below 4% would have a devastating impact on our kids, and even 4% is barely enough. Year after year, we find ourselves here fighting for funding that should be a given. Why are student needs growing? Think back 5 years. A global pandemic disrupted education in ways we are still grappling with today. Our youngest learners lost months of in-person instruction, months that are crucial for mastering foundational skills. Many students continued remote learning beyond that, widening the gap. At the same time, Norwalk has seen an influx of new families, some relocating from New York during COVID, others coming from across the world to start a better life. These students bring diverse needs, requiring sustained resources to succeed. The effects of COVID learning loss are real, and they are not going away. The support staff put in place, paras, coaches, interventionists, special educators, and mental health professionals are critical, and yet their jobs are now at risk. I also must emphasize that students with the highest needs often thrive in the arts. Music, visual art, theater, band, strings, these are not extras. They foster creativity, critical thinking, engagement, and social emotional growth. For some students, these programs are the reason they come to school at all. Those positions are also on the chopping block, and cutting them would be devastating. As a Norwalk parent and teacher, I implore you, do not let our schools and students down. The kids are resilient, but they won't recover from these losses. There is too much at stake. We need full funding, nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next online, please.
Next person is Elena E.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Great. Hello, thank you for hearing me today. I'm Ilana Elman. I live at 11 Merwin Street. Each day I ride Norwalk Transit's buses alongside a variety of service workers, engineers, and health employees. The planned improvements laid out in the NTD Ahead plan were heartening, so I was surprised this week to hear of the proposed 1/3 funding reduction to our transit system. The planned rework of Brunel Boulevard will reduce the Wheels Hub capacity, and without following through on the associated bus network improvements, it's difficult to see how our transit system will continue to serve our city. I ask you to honor your transit plans rather than cut them this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next in the room, please.
Nick Zerzan.
Good evening, Nick Zerzan. I live at 1 Jean Avenue. Thank you, board. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your service to Norwalk. I think no one can question that. I pray that I could be halfway as articulate and poignant as some of the people that spoke before me, and if it would help my cause, I'd be willing to hit my knees and plead with you guys, but I don't think it'll work for this microphone placement. I'm speaking mostly about the Board of Education budget and the proposed 4%. I'm kind of pleading for a Hail Mary, whatever more you can do to continue with that. And I have 3 children that attend Norwalk Public Schools. Myself, like many others in the town, rely on the public school system. I'm not really in a position to send my kids to private school. And I've been very, very blessed and appreciative of the wonderful education they've received up until now, in spite of what's been spoke about. These last 5 years have been incredibly challenging. Norwalk's shifting, obviously, we can all see some of the changes, and it's not been easy. I appreciate the challenges of managing a budget and expenses. I do it myself, whether it's at the grocery store or tomorrow I'll have to shop around and get oil delivered to my house from the cheapest supplier I could find. So I don't minimize that, and I appreciate how challenging it can be. However, with the schools, most of these increases are fixed. I don't see a lot of teachers, knocking out of the park with their huge salaries, and I don't think we're in a position to lose 120 people. And I think of what was given in the last number of years with the pandemic, and a lot of teachers risked their lives, and we're out there on the front lines, willing to help our students. That being said, students still lost a lot, and there were increased expenses to go along with that, as well as the changing demographic of the town and some of the ELL needs, and the paras that are invaluable and underpaid and underappreciated. So I don't think we're really in a position to lose any of those people. And like it's been shared, there's inflation is a big deal, and the costs are not going down, they're going up. 4% I don't think is unreasonable. I appreciate the willingness to work together and the
30 seconds
cohesiveness.
remaining.
And this may be the most important 3 minutes of my life if I can have any influence on you guys. And again, I appreciate the effort, and please, whatever you can do for the schools. Thank you.
Next online, please.
Next person is Tanner T.
Hi, am I coming through?
Yes, you are.
Excellent, thank you. My name is Tanner Thompson. I live at 16 Hillside Place, number K5. I want to echo the comments of Paul Fox and others who have spoken in support of the Norwalk Transit District. I served on the steering committee for the Comprehensive Operational Analysis, also known as NTD Ahead, and I want to offer some unique insight from that perspective. This is a project that is really years overdue, and nothing of its kind has occurred in Norwalk in, I think, 30 or 40 years. This is the first time that we have completely re-engineered the bus network in multiple decades. And to do it, the Norwalk Transit District hired one of the best transit planning consultants in the nation, Nelson Nygaard, and brought them in to, like I said, completely re-engineer the route network. That route network will go into effect in August. And as Mr. Fox alluded to, this is perhaps the most important operational change to Norwalk Transit in a long, long time. In particular, it's a change that will require a lot of outreach, a lot of connecting with Norwalkers, especially Norwalkers who already ride the bus, making sure that people understand how the network is changing, how they're going to get to school, get to work, get to the doctor, get to the grocery store, when all the bus routes are now different. The new network, I can confidently say, is a huge improvement over the old one. It's more efficient. It offers more frequent service on lines that have the most riders, and it will serve Norwalk well. But if we don't stick the landing of moving to this new network, and if we don't get the word out effectively to the Norwalkers who rely on the bus network, I think it will slow down the pace of Norwalk Transit and its impact in Norwalk for years to come. So like Mr. Fox said and others have said, this is really a very poor time to be talking about cutting operational funding, especially to the degree that was discussed a week ago in one of the discussion meetings. in order to ensure that the money that we've already spent on this operational analysis is well used, we need to make sure that we stick the landing this year in August when we transition to the new network. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next in the room, please.
I'm sorry, I can't quite read the last name, but the first part is Ludwig Pierre. E. Not 2 Penny Lane. No, we'll move on. Laura Nor.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Moina Noor, and I live at 15 Pequot Drive. I'm the chairperson of the Norwalk Public Library Board, and I'm here to ask for the reinstatement of $50,000 for the library's part-time staff budget. This money will provide raises for 45 part-time workers who haven't seen a pay increase in 10 years. These are our custodians who keep the library clean, shelvers who organize our varied materials for our over 28,000 monthly visitors, our library assistants and part-time librarians. As you may have seen in Nancy and Norwalk, over the last 10 years, our library's operating budget has been cut by over $1 million. Much of that has come in the form of full-time positions. And last year, our part-time budget was cut $100,000, making this reinstatement even more critical. Despite these cuts, our staff continues to provide essential services and programming to the community 7 days a week and up to 10 hours a day. Without this $50,000, we cannot give raises to the people who keep our wonderful library running. Libraries are more critical than ever as a public service, and I urge you to reinstate this funding.
Thank you very much. Next online, please.
Next online is Becca S.
Good evening. Apologies in advance if you hear any piano in the background. My husband is practicing for Cobb School's production of Willy Wonka Jr. My name is Becca Stoll. I live at 26 Emerson Street in East Norwalk, and I am here to urge you to not cut a third of NTD's budget. As my colleagues Tanner and Paul have attested to, we are headed for an enormous overhaul of NTD that is going to make it more efficient, faster, more like a service that someone like me would want to use. And to cut that off at the legs seems like a really odd choice. The bus is not just for people who are low income. It absolutely does help service industry people get to their jobs, such as part-time workers at the library, teachers, paraprofessionals, perhaps students going to Brian McMahon High School who aren't able to have school busing or can't park because they're seniors. If you don't give them a bus to take, they can't take the bus. As I said, I would like to be less and less car dependent. And as we build more transit-oriented development, both around South Norwalk and East Norwalk, we need to show that car-free living in Norwalk is an option. And NTD is going to be a huge part of that, but it has to have service. It has to have staff. It has to be easy to use, understand, and an attractive alternative to driving. And that will be made very difficult by a 33% cut to the budget at such a crucial time of the year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next in the room.
Romney Donald.
Good evening. My name is Romney Donald and resident in District A. I'm here as a concerned parent, resident, and community member to speak about the operating budget and challenge the suggestion that the fair housing officer position should be removed. Commissioner Yang suggested that Norwalk no longer needs the fair housing officer because we've moved on. But racism and discrimination have not disappeared. I have personally experienced racism and discrimination in workforce housing. And there is a serious problem with discrimination on Section 8 and families with children. I've utilized services at fair housing
myself, and removing this position would strip protections from residents who still need them. And I'd like to remind you that these services are mandated by settlement. According to page 7, the city operating budget, your intention is to raise revenues by only 1.26 to 1.4% and lowering the mill rate. Inflation currently stands at just over 3%, and our labor contracts call for contractual raises of 2 to 3%. So your proposed budget does not keep pace with inflation or our labor costs and will require our city to sacrifice services. At a time when Norwalk is prospering, why do we need to cut services, especially as we continue to under budget, make cuts to services, and then bank millions of unspent revenues to the general fund? Our schools are already stretched thin, and further constraints will make it harder to retain teachers and provide the resources students need. Larger class sizes and fewer academic and mental health supports will disproportionately harm Black and low-income students. I also support our state delegation's efforts to adjust the ECS formula to secure more state funding for Norwalk. Housing stability is also at risk. Rising costs and lack of affordable options already displace families, and budget cuts could mean fewer housing programs and delayed assistance. The city must do more to ensure working class residents can stay in Norwalk. Not New York, please. The Norwalk Public Library also needs fair funding. Staff, including part-time workers, haven't had raises in over 10 years and don't receive competitive pay or benefits. The library is more than just books. It's a hub for education, career support, and community services, particularly for Black and working class families. They are open 7 days a week. It is unacceptable to underfund it while other towns invest in theirs. Without proper operating funds, these services will be diminished, and the residents who rely on them the most, particularly Black and working class families, will
30
suffer the
seconds
most.
remaining.
I urge the BET to be transparent about the real impact of this budget. We cannot continue underfunding critical services while hoarding funds in the general fund. Norwalk must prioritize equity, education, and housing, not cuts that hurt the most vulnerable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next online, please.
Next person is Martin W.
Oh. Hi, sorry, I didn't realize that was me. Good evening, everyone. My name is Margaret Watt, and I reside at 41 France Street. I am the Director of Prevention at Positive Directions, where my work includes serving as Project Director for the Norwalk Partnership, which is a community-wide coalition to prevent substance misuse and promote mental wellness in Norwalk youth. In that capacity, I'm the one who funds and manages the biannual Norwalk Youth Survey conducted in collaboration with Norwalk Public Schools. I'm also a member of the Norwalk Act Social Emotional Health Leadership Team for the city and a parent of 2 young adults who recently graduated from P-TECH and McMahon. I'm also here, like many others, to talk about the funding for NPS. The proposed 4% increase is not sufficient to sustain the essential and, in fact, life-saving behavioral health services that have been necessary to respond to our youth mental health crisis. I mentioned that I manage the survey that we do every 2 years. When we surveyed our youth in June of 2021, 39% of all Norwalk 7th through 12th graders were reporting clinical signs of depression. In our survey this past fall, that number had dropped to 19%, basically half the prior rate. That rate has dropped in all our demographic groups, including our highest risk population, which was our trans and non-binary youth, where the depression rate decreased from 76% to 46%. So things are absolutely going in the right direction, but we still have 3 out of every 100 students telling us this year that they've made a suicide attempt since last year. Our marginalized populations, Hispanic, Black, students with IEPs, are all at much higher risk than those numbers that I just gave you. And that's why these efforts need to be sustained. An important reason why we've had the success we've had so far in cutting these rates down is that there has been increased and barrier-free access to counseling right at school. NPS has added school counselors at all levels in response to our data. NPS has also partnered with community agencies to host and provide services in the schools where the kids are spending their day. That includes crisis counseling from Kids in Crisis, trauma-informed therapy from Mid-Fairfield Community Care, counseling from Triangle Community Center, and more. My own agency, Positive Directions, currently provides substance counseling at each high school building 1 day a week. Another essential position is the social worker at large. This position goes above and beyond past roles. She supports and manages services to high-risk students. She supports school counselors, and she's an absolutely critical liaison
30
between.
seconds remaining.
Thank you. And the community agencies, working at a strategic level on all the citywide groups so that we can ensure our kids are supported in their families, classrooms, and community. Her role is at risk, and so are the counselors in our middle schools. And I just want to highlight that our youth survey this year said our middle school students are struggling more than the high schools right now. Norwalk is one of the few towns that hasn't had a teen suicide in recent years. Please make sure that we keep and sustain the services that are keeping our kids moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next in the room, please. Nia Calhoun.
Hi, my name is Nia Calhoun, and I'm an 8th grader here in Norwalk. I reside in District A. I wanted to speak today because the city's budget decisions don't just affect adults, they affect students like me too. I read the article about how Norwalk's budget is limiting funding for schools, libraries, and other important public services. This worries me because when budgets are cut, students lose teachers, counselors, and even programs like music, art, and sports. These aren't just extras, they help us learn, express ourselves, and feel supported. Art is my favorite subject, and I have plans to become an interior designer. Art has helped me to express myself. At school, I feel supported by my counselors especially, and it would be disappointing to lose that much needed support in school. The library is also really important. It's a place where students can go to study, have access to books and technology we might not have at home. If funding is cut, it would mean fewer resources, fewer programs, and less support for students who need it the most. This is especially important for Black students and other kids of color who might already face challenges in school. If we lose teachers, counselors, art programs, and library resources, where do we turn for support and inspiration? I think the city should find a way to support schools, libraries, and the arts without making cuts that hurt students. We are the future of Norwalk, and we deserve to have the resources we need to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next online speaker, please.
Next person is Ben H.
Hi there. Y'all can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Ben Peter. I live at 14 Haviland Street. I'd like to echo some of the comments made by previous speakers about the discussed cuts to the Norwalk Transit District operating grant. As some of them said, the NTD is entering a really critical period this year by launching the comprehensive operational analysis. And it would really be a slap in the face to all bus riders and city residents to be cutting their funding right at this time. I'd also like to add that we now have a federal government that is openly hostile to any sort of public transit, and funding coming from the feds will probably be harder and harder to come by over the next few years at least. So it's really more incumbent than before for municipalities to support transit districts. So I'd like to please ask that you stick to the value that was laid out in the budget proposal and not cut it as was discussed in the previous meetings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next in the room.
Marlene DeBellis. Did I get that right?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you very much. Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Marlene DeBellis, and I live at 2 Gilbert Street. And I want to thank the board and the mayor for your tireless dedication to the city of Norwalk. Norwalk is an amazing, wonderful place to live. I'm here to advocate for maximum funding for Norwalk Public Schools and Norwalk Public Library. I have the privilege of being the mom of a junior at Norwalk High School. She is receiving a phenomenal education with staff that absolutely go above and beyond every single day. And it is unimaginable to imagine any of this being cut. I would like to advocate for certainly the 4%, but also, if possible, toward the 9%, the original amount that the Board of Education had spoken about. Just as I trust Newark Public Schools with my child's safety and education, I trust that they have had a lot of deliberation and that they know what they need to operate effectively. I also want to talk about the Norwalk Public Library and how the library strengthens virtually every aspect of Norwalk. It is a hub and a partnership with the public schools, with families, with residents of all ages, and virtually all organizations. I feel that it exponentially strengthens every aspect of Norwalk. So again, I implore you to support maximum funding for Norwalk Public Schools and Norwalk Public Library. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. Good night.
Thank you. Next on line, please.
Next person is Paul Z.
Good evening, everybody. Can I be heard?
Yes, you are.
Outstanding. Now, I'm not a mathematical genius by any stretch, but all of this budget talk begs the question. In this giant, thriving, growing city, where is the money? Mayor, you did a phenomenal job of attracting that mall here. Don't you want your legacy to be rescuing this place? Don't you want that? Now, we need a firm accounting. Where is this revenue in this giant thriving city? And what's it costing us? Let's cut there. Okay? Are there cuts to be made? 100%. Okay? 100%. But I'm pleading with you guys, not at the cost of our amazing professionals. Full disclosure, I'm a teacher. History. And history is repeating itself, guys. Okay? Please, I'm pleading with you, not at the cost of our kids. Look, we know this. There is redundancy in this administration, but nobody talks about it. Why? Okay? No, we jump right to cutting the arts, which is unconscionable. Listen to me. We might be denying our babies their only chance to be exposed to music and the arts. Babies, I said babies, yes. All right, let's remember why we do this. One last thing. As a Marine, I often told my guys, we do with less, but we adapt, we overcome because we get creative and we are flexible. Mayor, board, I'm asking you, be creative, be flexible, but please, please keep those programs. It's what makes Norwalk amazing. We're here more than a decade now, and I would ask 10 more families to move here. That's how fantastic Norwalk is. Can we keep it that way? Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Next speaker in the room, please.
Ron Sharp.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ron Sharp. I live at 11 Gillies Lane. I'm a parent and taxpayer here in Norwalk, and I've been a resident for over 20 years. I thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to speak. I'm here tonight because I strongly opposed any proposed effective cuts on our already modest school budgets. I'm not a teacher, I'm just a parent. We live in a town surrounded by affluent communities that invest significantly in their schools. Their leaders understand that strong schools attract families, drive up property values, and create a thriving local economy. Yet instead of strengthening our schools to compete, we're considering effective cuts that will weaken them further. This is a backwards approach that will only make our town less desirable, discouraging new families from moving in and ultimately harming our local community and our economy. One of the schools most impacted by these cuts is Concord Magnet School, our town's only K-8 school. All schools are affected, but I have a personal interest in this because my daughter goes there. They already have an operating and been operating with minimal resources. And now on top of that, we're looking at almost a $500,000 reduction in funding, effective cuts that will directly affect classrooms, staffs, supplies. This school is a tremendous success, providing stable, inclusive, and supportive environment for our children, but it's already stretched thin. Taking away even more resources from a school that is doing so much with so little is not just impractical, it's truly irresponsible. Unlike some of our neighboring towns, our community is made up of a diverse range of demographics and income levels. This is one of our greatest strengths in Norwalk, but it comes with unique challenges that require proper funding to ensure all students, regardless of background, have access to high-quality education. Cutting funding effectively only widens the gap and makes it harder for our schools to provide the support, resources, and opportunities that every child deserves. Instead of stripping resources from our children, we should be making strategic investments in our schools to strengthen our community. A well-funded school system attracts families, raises property values, and improves overall financial health of the town. Cutting funding does the opposite. It drives families away, leading to weaker tax base and further economic decline. As you move decimal places around the budget, I want you to think about who showed up tonight. There's a lot of departments in the town.
30 seconds remaining.
Only a few showed up. We're talking schools, libraries, community hubs. I know I missed a couple, but somebody once told me, you make time for what matters. Those departments that didn't show up, they're not hurting. They're not scared about their kids. They would have been here if they would. That wonderful 8th grader that made a statement earlier is a product of our school systems. She did an amazing job. We're not going to have people like that show up at any board meetings wearing their shirts. Kids shouldn't have to come up and speak at a platform like this. I'm glad that they did, but I'd like you to think not just about budget sheet numbers.
3 minutes.
About impact of our children. Let's invest in success, not failure.
Thank you very much. Next speaker online, please.
Next person is Jamie M.
Hi, does everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my name is Jamie Morvitz at 11 Katy Lane. I have a 5-year-old in kindergarten at Norwalk Public Schools and a little one who will be attending Norwalk Public Schools in just a few years. I previously spoke at the Board of Ed, and I'm speaking here as well because I know how critical it is that students get as much money toward their education as possible. It seems crazy to me that those with power don't seem to understand and naturally approve what is necessary to support children's education the most. For parents to have to speak out, and every year I hear, seems extreme. I know 4% was all that was proposed last year, and then we got only 3%, and 4% is again a proposed this year. It's really not enough, but if that's the best we can get for them, then let the kids get that much. I taught before I became a mother, and based on my time in the classroom and now my time as a parent, I see how tight the budgets are in schools and how beneficial having coaches, paras, art education, and music and more are for the kids' learning. As little as needs to be cut, the better for teachers to be able to teach effectively and for children to learn. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker in the room.
Becky Riddle, sorry.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Becky Riddell. I live at 4 Greenfield Road. My husband and I are both educators within the MPS district, and our son goes to Nathan Hale Middle School. He's in the 7th grade. Before I just read something short, I'd like to say that I almost did not come tonight because I've been here 4 or 5 times since our son has been in the district the past 9 years. But I do feel passionate about, obviously, the budget. My husband and I are involved in the community and involved in the PTA at Nathan Hale Middle School. I just read something today with everything else going on in the world and talking about education and across the country, cuts that they want to make with education. But I read something very long and then this stood out to me. Education is not a business transaction. It's about people, children, teachers, families. It's about what happens when a child walks into a school building each morning and whether that child is happy in the place that they are. They have a chance to feel safe, supported, and thrive. A lot of our students also come to school to know that they have 2 meals a day. What I see every morning when I'm in my school is adults who love children and are happy to greet these children every day. And we need more of that in every single one of these buildings. And I'm proud to say that I work in one of these buildings, and a lot of staff also have children in the school system. I thank everyone who came out tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see no other online speakers, so next in the room, please.
Marissa Mangone.
Hi, everyone. Marissa Mangone, 15 Ludlow Manor. Good evening, Mayor and members of the BET. I come before you tonight as a lifelong Norwalk resident, a proud graduate of Norwalk Public Schools, a parent of current NPS students, and a community provider, Mid-Fairfield Community Care Center, working in close partnership with both Norwalk Public Schools and the City of Norwalk. I recognize the incredibly difficult position you're in, balancing the needs of our schools and programs with the responsibility of protecting residents from further tax burden. And I want to thank you for your thoughtful leadership in this regard. That said, I'm here tonight to strongly urge the Board of Estimation and Taxation, to increase the 4% funding allocation for the Board of Ed. This is not just a financial decision. It is a lifeline for the thousands of students and families who depend on our schools for academic support, social and emotional learning, and increasingly critical mental health services. In recent years, Norwalk has made substantial, measurable progress in the area of youth mental health. Our school district and city have become a model for other communities by demonstrating the power of a strong public-private partnership. Together, we've built programs, trained staff, and created an infrastructure that is beginning to show real results. The latest youth survey data confirms that what we see on the ground every day, we are in fact moving the needle. But the proposed cuts threaten to undo this momentum. They risk leaving students, families, and educators without the vital supports they depend on, at a time when the demand for mental health services is only growing. Increasing the Board of Education's funding allocation is not just good policy. It's a necessary investment in the well-being of our children and the long-term health of our community. I recently had the opportunity to present to a local foundation that not only supports our organization, but deeply values our ongoing collaboration with the Board of Education and the City of Norwalk. In that conversation, I shared both the data and measurable outcomes of our work, along with the powerful stories and testimonials we've received from NPS educators, students, and families. I'd like to share just a brief excerpt from one of these testimonials. Through one-on-one and small group counseling, Mid-Fairfield has provided the essential emotional regulation supports to students facing a range of challenges. Their expertise in trauma-informed care has been instrumental in helping students navigate their emotions, build resilience, and develop coping strategies. Their bounce back program. Oh my gosh, okay. Well, additionally, their professional learning sessions for educators have strengthened our ability to create trauma-sensitive learning environments by equipping teachers with strategies to support students affected by trauma. As a parent, I can think of no higher priority than the mental health and well-being of our children. I strongly urge and respectfully ask that you continue to prioritize both their social and emotional well-being, mental health, and academic success as you make this critical decision. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other speakers in the room, Tom?
We do have somebody at home. Oh, we have 2 people now. So the first one up is Naomi D.
We'll come to them in a moment.
Oh, sorry about that. 1 second, please.
Mayor, how are you?
Yeah.
Pastor Artie? Nice to see you. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. For the past few days, I've been thinking carefully how I was going to approach this opportunity to speak. Everyone knows how much I value humor. Lord knows to be a principal in Norwalk, you must protect and preserve your sanity and possess a strong sense of self. And you've got to learn to laugh. And I've got a few of my colleagues who can definitely attest to that. Thankfully, our jobs provide us with much material to keep us laughing for days on end. However, I can tell you that the last 2 months have been nothing but challenging and some days quite terrifying. The thought of having to cut $540,000 from my budget has gripped me with emotional distress, anxiety, and genuine sadness. Oh, by the way, I'm Mr. T, the principal at Concord Magnet School K-8 in Norwalk. 10 years ago, I was fortunate to be chosen to lead Columbus Magnet School. I was filled with boundless hope, idealism, and a strong sense of mission and purpose. Our school has encountered countless highs. For example, celebrating our 40th anniversary a few years ago, realizing our dream to become Norwalk's first K-8 school. And we've dealt with several low points, namely enduring what amounted to be a false promise of a new school, which truly hurts, and the unexpected death of one of our students, an event that totally devastated us. We were gutted from the inside out. However, we were able to rise because we could count on others in the district to support us, and our love and dedication to each other inside our building rescued us from the depths of despondency. How did we get by? Well, we were staffed appropriately. We had the right people in the right positions to help us. They watched over us, they cared for us. And then to add to our challenges that year, the unimaginable happened. In the middle of the night, I suffered what turned out to be the first of 5 major seizures that year. Imagine watching the faces of your own children and wife in shock and sadness while the police and EMS are in your bedroom carting you off into an ambulance. But I was lucky. I had people I could rely on to drive me to work, take me home, and cover my building when I was incapacitated. I had the support because the district
30
was fully
seconds remaining.
staffed. I'm just coming from the hospital. A friend of mine experienced a medical episode earlier today. Without thinking twice, I was able to go to Norwalk Hospital, just like that. On my way out of the building, I was able to shout orders to various people for things that I needed to have taken care of. And I was not worried. I could focus on my friend and not worry about the school. Why is that? Because my building is staffed appropriately. However, next year, I wonder, do I have to anticipate more seizures because of my struggles trying to run an effective school without an appropriately staffed school? Will I be leading my school or will I be struggling as I try to manage it? I'm not looking for luxury, but I'm looking for what is now considered a dirty word. I'm looking for equity.
3 minutes.
But I'm not holding my breath. So, my children, I promise you that I will give you my everything with or without anyone's help. We will find a way to give you what you deserve. Equity with what your peers in other towns are getting without having to beg. And we're going to give you some luxury because you are worth it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next online speaker, please.
Next online speaker is Naomi D.
Yes, hello. Naomi is actually my daughter. My name is David Doris. I reside at 12 Bird Road. I had some unprepared remarks to make as I've been listening to this hearing, because we find ourselves at the intersection of our education department's concerns and our wallets. Right now, we have projected increases in our property taxes of as much as 30% or even more in some cases over the next 4 years. So for example, very simply, if someone currently pays $6,000 in property taxes right now, they could end up paying as much as $9,000 in a couple of years. So then The question is, of that money, how much of it is actually going to help our goals of increasing the quality of our students' education? How much of it is going to effectively do one thing, which is to help our students get into selective higher education organizations? There is not enough discipline shown. We don't have enough of a track record compared to our neighboring school districts to show that we use money towards this goal, this one paramount goal, to keep it very simple. I think that as much as our schools drastically need funding in a lot of different areas, we first need to show the discipline to further this goal. We first need to work with what we have, as painful as that may be. I am fully supportive of increasing funding in the long term, but not before we know that that money goes to this goal. And it has a very real impact in the coming years as far as what people will be paying additionally in taxes, in the thousands of dollars. Not all of it is felt yet. But of all these nice to have programs and all these different groups of people that do need help in many different ways, we also have a duty to our own children above anything else. And when hard decisions have to make, do I have to decide whether those 3,000 additional tax dollars potentially go towards furthering this goal, or
30
do they
seconds
go to something
remaining.
else? It is a very serious question. And it is one that we first need to have a track record of discipline of showing that we can further that goal. Then we can increase funding, not now.
Thank you very much. We have two more online speakers. Next,
Anybody else?
please.
Nobody on the list. Anybody still want to speak? Oh, go ahead, do
The next
online.
online speaker, please.
go next.
The next online speaker is Dr. Robin.
Hi, good evening to the members of the Board of Estimation and Taxation. My name is Robin Gredinger, and I live at 501 Foxborough Drive for the past 18 years. I've also dedicated those 18 years to servicing our schools as a social worker. For the past year and a half, I've had the honor of being the social worker in residence for our district. As you heard last week, my position is at risk due to the proposed budget cuts. And while it's difficult for me to speak about personally, I'm here because I deeply care, not just about my role, but the services and the supports that our students and our staff rely on every single day. In my role, I wear many hats. One of the most critical is leading the district crisis team, where we coordinate immediate response and supports for our students and staff in times of trauma and emergency. I work closely with local mental health agencies to ensure that anyone facing serious safety concerns, whether that be a threat to themselves or others in the community, receives the appropriate and fast interventions that they need. Beyond the crisis work, I provide wellness support to both staff and students. And with so many educators experiencing burnout in this incredibly demanding profession, this kind of care has never been more important. When our teachers feel supported, we're even better able to support our kids. I know that you guys are facing incredibly tough decisions, but I want to gently challenge those ideas that things are back to normal. If it seems like our kids are no longer in needs of these supports, maybe it's because the supports are actually working. But taking them away now would be like stopping a medication just because someone feels better, only to risk a serious setback. These proposed cuts remove more than just positions. They remove stability, connection, and care from our classrooms. And while I know you may not see the immediate impact, those of us in the schools, we do firsthand. Without adequate funding, we're risking overcrowded classrooms, under-resourced staff, and students whose needs will go unmet. That's not reflective of this community in Norwalk that I hold dear. I've watched our city work hard to stretch their resources, especially during the pandemic. And while temporary federal funds helped us get through some of those years, they're no longer
30
here to
seconds
help.
remaining.
And the need remains. Tonight, I'm simply asking, no, I'm actually begging you to recognize the real and lasting value of the funds NPS is asking for. I respectfully urge you to not only meet the recommended 4% increase, but to fully fund the 5.6 requested by the BOE. Let's continue to invest in the well-being of our children and the educators who serve them every day. Thank you for your time and thank you for your care to this important work.
Next speaker in the room, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Sanger. I live at 3 Crossland Place. I'm here tonight as the, Mr. Camacho, how you doing? I'm here tonight as the parent co-chair of the SGC at Merrimack Elementary, where my daughter is a kindergartner. I have a bunch of thoughts about what's been discussed and what's been proposed here. I've come to speak at a couple of these hearings in the past several weeks. And a trend that I have observed that I think is worth mentioning is there is what I feel is a lack of true transparency in this budgeting process. I'm not talking about things like posting numbers on a web page or anything like that, but just having been involved with the SGC this year and learning more about how this functions, I had the opportunity to go to a Board of Ed presentation at Brian McMahon several months ago. It seemed like a lot of these decisions or these proposals were almost made ahead of time in terms of the increase on the cap and the nature of the cuts that were going to be made. It all felt a little performative, to be quite frank, and I think that there needs to be more of an emphasis on community and parent involvement more, earlier on in the process, so that these concerns don't have to come before you here at sort of the last minute. I do think that the strength of our Norwalk community is founded in public education, and to not have what I perceive to be a full set of information that we all can work from earlier on in the process, I think that would be incredibly beneficial. Personally, as a young homeowner here in the city, it's a little concerning that we're being asked to contribute more by way of our property taxes here in the next 4 years, while also now having to address these issues with respect to cuts to our school budget, or not fully funding the schools in the manner that they should be. And to that point, it's no secret that a lot of funding has been derived from COVID grants these past several years, which it seems like everyone should have known was not going to last forever, and more planning should have been put in place to address that. One last thing, I know the rainy day fund is mentioned a lot, and I can't pretend to have the understanding as to how that would even be accessed, but the simple fact of the matter is that Norwalk Public Schools is facing a torrential downpour at this point in terms of what's being asked of the principals, who sort of unwittingly assumed the task of being the ultimate decision makers here, which I also feel is deeply unfair to those people. And just in closing, one of the things that I firmly believe makes Connecticut and Norwalk really just an exceptional place to live is prioritization of education. And my wife and I both graduated from Brian McMahon. We both received the benefit of adequately funded education through the CGS, exposure to the arts, athletics, and a lot of other programs that are, they very well may not be in place in the immediate future for my own kids. And to me, that's deeply concerning and disappointing. So with that, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I see one more speaker online. Let's have that individual, please.
Next speaker online is Stephen.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank the board and the mayor. You all sitting in a hot seat, not a need.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a
Norwalk is a
bandwidth
great
issue or
place
something. We
to
really
raise a
can't hear
family.
you.
Stephen, there appears to be a
Yeah,
connectivity
I've had
problem
some
on your
dithering
end.
on this, and I'm just saying that Norwalk. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it seems to be okay.
Can you hear me? Okay, now.
Yes.
I was just saying that Norwalk's a great place to raise a family. We a fourth grader at Columbus Magnet School. I joined the meeting as a point of discovery to sort of catch up with everything that's going on. And I just what I've heard thus far that, and without repeating, that let's keep it where I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see at this point no other individuals making public comments. Therefore, that will close the public comment section of tonight's meeting. I want to thank all those who showed up. I want to thank all those who spoke. Your courage, your comments, your thoughts are important to all of us in our deliberations. They are taken seriously. They are not ignored. So thank you very much, all of you, for the passion you bring to this as well. With that, we have two more items on our agenda this evening. The first, I believe, is the discussion of Reps and Parks funding. Can I get a motion to bring that to discussion? So moved. Thank you, Troy.
Yeah, we have Robert Stowers here to give us a little bit of an overview.
Good evening, board members. I come before you tonight with a budget request, a budget neutral request. Asking for a position to be made full-time and transferring funds from the general fund, the expenses from the general fund to the the Parks and Recreation 4,000 account. I think you should have something before you that speaks to that. This particular position is a position that's very critical to me and to the department. As we strive to be more businesslike, as we strive to generate more revenue, and we strive to actually account for our revenue. This position is a systems analyst that is responsible for our reservation, scheduling, and accounting platform. This particular position was responsible for the conversion of a older recreation system that was used when I initially came to Parks and Recreation. So this person acts as our master program reservationist scheduler. She's also our account manager overseeing our facility rentals, recreation programs, sports fields, staff, and managing reservations and programs and scheduling of indoor and outdoor sports. She also, this position is a liaison to ActiveNet, which is our IT platform that is a public-facing and internal tool for registrations in all of our programs. This position also works with ActiveNet on an ongoing daily basis, making sure that our revenues are transferred into our accounts, troubleshooting with all our other recreation staff that are responsible for inputting their programs and their reservations in the system. There's an extensive back end of this platform is financial. And this position is responsible for the accuracy of working with the comptroller's office to make sure that funds are transferred into the appropriate accounts. This position will become more and more important as we recently, the board of the school board has approved a joint use agreement. The joint use agreement is really documenting the policies and procedures of using school facilities for our rec programs. Unlike some cities where parks and rec have their own facilities, in this city, both of us, both parks and schools use city facilities for programs. With the signing, it hasn't been signed yet, but with the approval of the joint use agreement, it's going to give the scheduler reservationist, it's going to give her more of a responsibility to keep a central calendar with the school.
I'm sorry, Mr. Stars, there's an issue about whether or not this is on the agenda, so we don't want to
Okay.
ignore what you're saying, so if you can just maybe
Okay.
pause for a second.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Eddie.
No, that's fine.
What happened?
So the issue is whether or not this was formally on the agenda 24 hours in advance of.
So it's not, was it?
There's, it was asserted that it was part of the approval of the operating budget discussion. But there is some confusion as to whether that was truly clarified in the agenda. And that's what Jared and the mayor are discussing right now.
Mr. Abrams, did you say that there was also a second item?
Yeah, that's approval of the operating.
Actually approve the operating budget related.
The team wanted to put it on the agenda for this evening. The finance team put it on the agenda.
Yeah.
Without any further debate from what we have heard.
This is part of what we will discuss.
We're good because this is.
You can proceed, Mr. Stars.
26 operating budget. So it's not something that's being done right now, it's being done.
Okay, so it may proceed as part of the 2026 operating budget discussion.
Yes, yes. Okay, so as I stated, this position has a myriad of responsibilities, and as we know in our city, a lot of positions at this level have a lot of responsibilities. And this position is going to become more and more important as we cooperate with our schools to have a central calendar through our reservation system, so we don't have double bookings, we don't have confusion about which facilities are being used. And this person will work hand in hand with the school district's reservationist person. Also, in 2026, the spring, we're going to be bringing on a community recreation center. And that center is going to have programs, meeting rooms, and a formal structured classes that have to be reserved and scheduled. And that center will be responsible for also collecting revenue for birthday parties, for events that take place in meeting rooms, for nonprofits that are renting the meeting rooms for events or for meetings. So the community center is also responsible for bringing in some revenue. This person also will be responsible for training the the staff that works in the community center and troubleshooting those as well. And making sure that the reservation system, the scheduling system, and the financial collection of monies is done in a more efficient, accurate, and business-like way.
Question. The salary of $84,000, where did that come from? What's the rationale behind that?
We did some comparative, we did some comparables across the country to see what the, including the state, see what a system analyst makes. And that was kind of in the middle of what a systems analyst makes.
The other thing you said, it's cost neutral. Is that going forward as well?
Yes, it'll be cost neutral going
Next
forward.
fiscal year, but
Yeah,
what about after that?
cost neutral going forward, doesn't increase the cap.
As long as we agree to transfer.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it doesn't increase the cap because as you can see from the handout, the expenses that we are transferring those expenses to the 4,000 account, and that was on your last page. You can see that there's sufficient revenue in the 4,000 account to take on these expenses. And so the monies that we're paying for these expenses in the general fund is transferred to full-time so we can hire this position full-time.
Are you, have you worked with our HR person to draft a job description? Because eventually that'll have to be done.
Yeah, we do. We have drafted a job description.
Mr. Chairman, one question.
Mr. General,
Is the mayor finished? Oh, okay. So just to understand this, since we were giving it to us tonight, you're just maneuvering your budget so that you're setting up this general fund to work within your system to do what you want to do as far as programs, and money was going to go in and out of that account. And we think that that account is going to go up. It's not going to go down, meaning we're going to have to come to the city to fund if there's any deficiencies. Is that true?
That's true. This over the last 5 years, this account has continued to grow and grow.
Okay.
And we continue to increase the number of our programs, so the revenue continues to grow. And as I stated, this person is someone that is needed in a business-like way to continue to collect revenues and to, as we bring on programs, to make sure that they're inputted properly into the IT platform and revenues are collected. We'll also have to increase our marketing because we need to have more sales, more participation. And so that's going to be a focus, one of my focuses.
So this setup is going to give you more flexibility in order to drive revenues in your world in the recreation department.
Yes,
is that true?
yes, yeah, that's true.
And when is this going to take place? Is it the fiscal year next year or is it immediate?
It'll be 2026 fiscal year. 26.
So
yeah.
July 1st.
July 1st.
For next year.
Yeah, for next year.
And is this something you did in your previous life in Seattle or something?
In Seattle, we were required to always turn in budget neutral budgets with priority. So reprioritizing and identifying efficiencies, because every year there should be different priorities. If you're doing a work plan every year, you should be finishing some of those projects or some of those tasks. And so then you move the money to something else, another priority. So we were required in Seattle to do this. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Yes.
I just,
Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Just get to.
To clarify that this account already exists. It's already in operation. It's already been, money gets spent out of it, revenue goes into the account. We're really trying to make this a more transparent account and a more formalized account. I think a lot of the council members and maybe board members here know about this, have heard about it in the past, Learn and Play account. We want to make it a formal program and have the Common Council adopt it as a program with the proper restrictions on where money can be spent, what functions it can be spent on, what revenue goes into it versus what goes into the general fund. And so that's one of the requirements in order to make this change happen. We're going to have to implement this program in that way by July 1st in order for this program to, this change to go forward.
I do have a question about that. Did you have a question? Ann?
No, go ahead, but Mr. Baum should.
No, well, my question was, and I was trying to understand this when you mentioned it at the last meeting. My understanding is that typically departments take in revenue, they spend money. So in addition to the revenues that they receive and monies that they receive from the city, that constitutes the operating budget for that department. And at the end of the fiscal year, anything left over falls into the general fund. But in this case, it appears that there was an account that existed separate and apart from that process.
That's right.
Which is why the account continued to generate monies.
Right.
So when you said earlier that this money that you're asking for the money to come from the general fund or from the general account, is that because now as this whole thing is being reconfigured, the monies that were currently or previously in that standalone account are now being poured into the city, and so now you're requesting that it come from the general fund, even though it originated with your department?
Well, some of what you're saying is accurate. I think that what I'm trying to do in the long run is lessen our dependency on the general fund. We talked about a park foundation that we're looking to start after this. As we generate more money, we can take on more of the expenses of the general fund. And so this is transferring recreation expenses that are in a recreation sub-account in the general fund. We're taking those expenses, moving them to the play and learn account where recreation activities and programs really belong. Hopefully, when we look at our whole budget in terms of pie and where the funding sources come from, this will be part of a revenue source that will have a piece of that pie when we look at the budget in total. We will always need general fund money. We'll always need it, but we want to lessen our dependency on general fund money. So this is one of it's a small step because it's only one position, but we want to continue that.
And for these particular programs, part of the program and the policy document that will be approved will set a threshold. And so any revenue remaining above that threshold at a certain point in time, and we'll have to work out these details, will go into the general fund.
Thank you. Mr. Sowers, thank you for this analysis, which is very transparent and appreciated. So a couple of questions. So what you're saying is the monies that you want to fund the position is going to come from this column.
Yeah.
So that means you're going to do without $67,000 from the summer concert series.
We're going to fund that out of the play and learn account. The 4,000 account. On your others, the last page where you have on the last page, if you look at it, there's another table.
Right.
Yeah. And so you see the $107,000 we put over in the expense side transferred from the general fund at the bottom, if you look at that.
All of those costs on the left will be absorbed by the 4,000 account that Robert's talking about.
Okay, so it really is an incremental cost. It is an incremental cost to this 107 in the accounting for it, because we're still going to fund these items.
We're going to fund those out of the play and learn account. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So whereas that money previously just went into the general fund and was considered as revenue.
Well, these are expenses. These are expenses. They're not revenue.
No, but in this second here, if you're going to take the 107 out of this account, then the revenues and or the profits that you made from these programs is reduced. Is that right,
No,
Mr. Chair?
these are expenses that we pay. We don't get any money back from
Well, I
summer
understand, but
concerts.
let me interrupt.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
this is about as clear as mud to me, I'm sorry. Right?
Mm.
Very simply, Ms. Yang is right. You added $107,000 worth of expense
Mhm.
to the 401, to
The 4,000 account, yes,
Right?
Yes.
that's
That
true.
is Net new expense.
That's true.
Right?
Yep.
That reduces the historical profit that account had by $107,000. You've also
Yeah,
talked.
that's right.
You've also
That's right.
talked about then the need for, covering the $113,000 in these areas as well out of this account. So basically, you're now covering $220,000 worth of expense that was in the general fund, now in this 4,000 account. Because I don't see the salary anywhere else. Right? Additionally, Jared, you just made a comment of, we will work to potentially cap how much remains in the 4,000 account, transferring it to the fund balance at the end of the year. I would like those details before we decide whether or not this proposal makes sense. I feel like we've got half the story here. No offense, Robert. I know you worked this very hard over the last week from our last meeting. But it's an incomplete story.
I think just to clarify, I don't think the $220,000 is coming from the general fund or coming from the general account. It's coming from this particular standalone account that has apparently been increasing year after year.
That's where the burden that sits, but today at all these expenses, less the 107,000 for new people is being transferred into the 4,000.
Only the 107,000.
Only the
transferred
107,000.
into the 4,000 account.
But the positive balance in the 4,000 account is going down by 107,000.
Yes.
So it is a net new expense to the
The
city.
4,000 account,
Period, full stop.
to the 4,000
To the
account.
4,000.
Well, to the city.
Yes,
to the
but
city,
it's
but
still
to
to the
that
city. It doesn't, I mean, it's, so rather than the city having 200,000 going to the general account, or 300,000 and 7,000 going
Right.
to the general account, is now 200.
But this money doesn't go into the general account. It stays in.
There's no additional spending here,
Right, but
period. There's no additional spending. It's a movement from the general fund of money in the general fund into the 4,000 account.
how you laid this out, I still don't follow. I'm sorry, I don't. Right?
The monies that are received from revenues from the department.
I know, but
No, I get that part.
Yeah, but the profits come to the city and we're taking some of those
Well,
profits.
they
and
don't.
funding
They
them.
don't.
They don't come.
They don't.
That's the point. yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
point.
That's what
but
we're
that-
gonna change. That's one of the
that's-
changes we'll.
That's
we'll
the other half of this, though, that I would like clarity on before we agree to. Right? I think it's wonderful, Robert, that you have got a revenue generating account and that Rec and Parks is starting to generate revenue that allows you to support additional headcount, which further drives revenue, all the programs you want. All of those things make perfect sense,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
There's open-ended questions here, though, about how big are we gonna let that account get? Right?
Well, that's what he was. yeah.
Right, so I would like to have those answers before we agree that this is good or bad.
Robert, can you clarify something for me on
Yes.
the second,
Mhm.
on the second page?
Okay,
This, you're looking at 1 year's worth of funding in and out of the play and learn account here, correct?
right,
So so you bring in $872,542.
yeah.
And you spend $672,059.
This is our projection for 2026.
Okay, any reason to believe that it's gonna blow up in years beyond that?
It's going to continue to increase.
Expenses, are expenses gonna increase dramatically for any reason?
I don't believe so. I think they'll keep pace. I mean, we've averaged at the end of the fiscal year, we've averaged having a $500,000 to $600,000 balance. I think Tom made a list of what the balances were over the last Yes,
500
to 600 over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
From
So
what you're,
so what this is showing is that there's, even with the 107 going into it, it's gonna turn out $200,000 in
Understand.
additional revenue, and then going forward, that's gonna continue.
And from what you've explained the position to be,
Mhm.
it seems that that position is going to presumably help generate more fees in the future because there'll be
That's
more
right.
coordination and
That's right.
more sort of interaction and stuff like that. So
It's a position we really need.
And that's the side of this that I don't see an answer to, that $200,000 worth of profit, and I use that word loosely, is gonna grow to 300 to 400 to 500. Right? If expenses are gonna basically just stay flat with inflationary increases, right? At what point do you cap?
that's what,
Right.
Right.
And so what I'm saying is, for example, what you might do is, in that year, maybe 100 of the 200,000 goes back into the general fund.
Jared, my point is, do the work, make the recommendation. You've got half the recommendation. Right? As a member of this board, I would like to understand at what level are you going to have that, again, I'll use the word loosely. Because I want to understand that, and then what potentially.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, can I just speak for a minute? I think all we wanted to accomplish tonight to get in the budget was this position. The former financial director saw this as a fund that needed more, transparency. Heretofore, it hasn't had. It's just revenues going in, and the council, neither the council or you knew about this fund. And so what we're trying to do now, we're trying to make it transparent. And the first part of this was just trying to get this position, just moving the money that can pay for this position to be full-time. That's all we were trying to accomplish tonight. There's another effort, you're right. There's another effort to actually bring this program whole in terms of what you're saying. And that's what we were going to be working on with the comptroller and bringing it to the council, to back to you, and then back to the council and through the common council for approval. So that was going to be the second part of this effort.
Just a quick question. You have this as an expense. Is every employee an expense, or does this move over to headcount eventually? I mean, I think accounting wise, is it correct to be in here?
I'm not sure what you're.
I'm saying, I mean, is he as an expense as well, listed in here as an expense, is his position? Are we now putting employees as expenses, like here, funding them through expenses, or are we funding them from the city? And it moves over to a wages and salary.
Yeah. This will be moved
Account.
over to the general fund, so it's funded by the city, this position.
But so will the revenues, or at least a certain amount of revenues in excess of what's being collected. But so for purposes of this discussion this evening, whatever that cap is, where the monies go back into the general fund, whatever that cap is, it could be $1, it could be $100,000.
Right.
The bottom line is that for this position, it is going to be funded from that account. It is effectively a self-funded, and your representation is that that expense is not going to increase over time.
That's right.
But that position might actually result in additional revenues increasing over time. Because it will make it easier to collect that money. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
This position will stay in the general fund though. This particular position stays in the general fund. That's what the transfer is here on the first page. It's showing that this first page only deals with the general fund and the accounts that are within the rec and park department. And so it's showing on the left-hand side, there are a bunch of accounts that are going to move into the other revenue account, and which is going to quote unquote free up space to pay for this position, to cover the cost of this position. So this this position remains in the general fund, paid out of the general fund. Robert, as far as I know, there are no positions funded out of the 4,000 account. Is that accurate?
Only seasonal positions for the summer camps.
This does not affect the budget cap.
No.
This added funds into 107,000 added into the 26.
No change to the cap, no change to the rec and parks total. It's just a reallocation from those handful of expense lines up to the full-time salaries.
The other thing I have question. It looks as if you're saying there's revenue from, or funds left over from the summer concert series. To a tune of $67,000.
No, those are the expenses we pay the band. Those are all expenses.
How, we don't make money from.
No, they're all expenses. This is what we pay the bands. So now we're saying we're paying those, it's a professional services category. Now
You're still having the summer concert series.
Yeah, but we're gonna pay those out of the other account, the 4,000 account.
And the person or the position, there's you say you have a part-time position now.
Yeah.
Gonna make it a full-time. Is that the
Right.
same person that's in the part-time position?
Yes. Yeah. We hope, although they have to go through a
And that
process.
person has been trained on the what is it called, AllNet?
ActiveNet?
ActiveNet?
Yeah, she not only trained on it, she did the conversion along with the company. She did our conversion.
I think what Mr. Abrams is asking, correct me if I'm wrong, is we want to see something more specific, like a policy that we have.
Right. Yeah.
Here's a policy that we're using this fund to pay, and there's gonna be limits and so forth.
Right.
I mean, that's.
Yeah.
Right, and that's that's my requirement too, before even bringing this to, that before even letting this happen and allowing it to be implemented on July 1st, that policy has to be put into place. And so if it's something that, it's gonna have to be something that you're happy with in the end.
Well, what
Because
happens-
if that doesn't happen, this isn't, this whole
What
thing is
happens
not
if
gonna
we,
move forward.
what happens if we table this until we see that policy? Would
We're
that
not gonna vote
affect
there.
the operating budget here, or?
We'd have, I guess we'd have to do all of the policy
We can do it
and
as a
get
transfer
that
later
done
on.
and we have to do it as a transfer later on.
We can do
would be
that,
the
right?
way- That would be the way to do it.
We did transfers every single month.
Yeah. If we were to do a transfer, at a certain point in time, this way it can be done as a transfer as opposed to.
Yeah.
And
We could do that.
There's no urgency because it doesn't take effect until July 1st.
Right.
We could do that.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
funds we have, can I just,
Excuse me one second.
can I just,
It sounds like we've established that it's not gonna affect the cap, right, Tom and Jared?
Yes.
This is
Right.
something internal for his division. It just happens to be one of his accounts. You must have what, 30 accounts in your world?
yeah, we have a lot of accounts.
Okay. I think what we need is what Ed said, Mr. Chairman said. We need to see a policy on what the threshold is, because it sounds kind of like the golf course. They're a separate entity, money stays there, but now you're saying you want a threshold or a cap of how much comes back to, like Ed said, the general fund. We need to know that. So I would recommend also tabling this or get us that information before I'm comfortable with it.
Is there meant to be a vote tonight?
Well, if somebody makes a motion, it can't, the discussion's over, it has to be voted on.
Wait, but was there meant to be a vote tonight? I'm just, it wasn't clear that there was. a
Well,
vote.
you were asking about timing.
They came to
Well,
us looking for approval on the headcount transfer tonight.
For tonight.
It was in the budget.
Yeah.
I would ask somebody to move that we table this and move this transfer.
Can I say something just
Can I
before?
move to table it?
So no, table, it's not debatable, so they have.
Yeah.
they have to vote.
Can I move to table it, Mr. Chairman?
Can I just, because this is part of the old.
Table it, for some more discussion.
Yeah.
Until.
But can
until-
we-
until
Can I move to table
unless the
it?
vote fails.
Then understand that there has been a motion to table. If the motion to table approves, the discussion is over for this evening. We have to
And
vote
my
on that.
point is,
We
there's
have
no,
to
there's
vote
no
on that
item on
motion
the,
before
there's no,
there's no more-
there's no item
just
on the
made a
agenda to
motion,
vote on
Mr.
this.
Chair.
If there is no more discussion, there's a motion on the table.
No,
Floor.
but
there's no-
We have to vote.
But there is no item to vote on. There is nothing on the agenda to vote on. We brought this up for you all to consider as part of the overall budget.
But we
Not as a separate, no, you're gonna vote on the overall budget and. come to-
Can I say something though? Right
No.
now, right now.
I'm sorry.
No, I just want to let you know there is a time urgency because the person part-time is now working on some funds that were available because we hired a person. And so they're working on ARPA funds and that's going to be over July 1st. So we don't need it until July 1st, but we
have
want to
a
get it
meeting in
done by.
April, we have a meeting in May.
Yeah,
we have a
okay,
meeting in-
okay.
Everyone's aware of
Okay.
that.
Just letting you know.
Problem, Jerry?
I don't, as long as we can get that policy
As long as we can
document
get it
done,
done, yeah.
quickly
So we don't-
and
We
then
can
get
get
it
it
to the
done.
right boards
Just
and
not
we
discussing
can get
it.
it done.
We don't need a motion.
Right.
Okay,
So there is no motion to
I
table.
withdraw my,
There is no
I
motion
withdraw
to
my
table.
table motion.
The recommendation from the BET to you is to get that proposal done as quickly as possible, at which point we can bring this forward again with the full detail. and
Yes.
Transfer, just like we do with all other intra and interdepartment transfers.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Well,
No.
Is there anything else?
it's a vote.
Hang on, please. Please. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the operating budget.
Can
We
I move it?
discussed open items last week.
Can I
Let's
move it?
move it.
I will move that.
Well, thank you, guys.
No, the mayor.
It's fine, it's moved for discussion. Mr. Mayor?
My discussion. I think we put together, through hard work and due diligence, a fair and equitable budget. Maybe I shouldn't say the word equitable, otherwise we'll lose the funding for it. No, I think we put together a fair and equitable budget that helps keep city services where they are, helps the Board of Education of Norwalk Public Schools to the degree that we can, while still being fair to the taxpayers of the city. As we know, this is a very, very difficult year. I've said it over and over again. We've all understood it. It's a very difficult year because of the rebound and the phase-in process. And taxes are going up significantly because of the shift from residential to a good percentage of the burden shift from residential to commercial. Now, the other thing that we've discussed in other meetings and so forth is the fact that we don't know what's happening on the national level. We don't know what funds may be cut. We don't know what grants may be withdrawn. And it goes for the Board of Education and for the city of Norwalk side. So we have to be very cautious that we do a budget that is lean, but still try to do as much funding as we possibly can. I would recommend, at this point, keeping the budget the same, as we crafted it, 2.5% for the city and 4% for the Board of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I do have a question.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Did I miss the meeting on when we discussed open items? I must have missed that
Yes.
meeting.
We discussed that at our last meeting. I'm not sure to reopen it.
My apologies.
I have a question also, just a point of
Yes, Mr.
clarification.
Phillips.
Is this a tentative budget? Because the email from Tom said.
Yeah, no, it's
voting
this is.
Tentative.
Yeah, so basically what you're affirming is that you want to stay at or under the common council cap, which you are at this point, you are equal to the common council. So this will, assuming this gets approved, it'll prompt a document signed by Ed that lays out the mill rates as well as the line items here, and forward that onto the common council. This is our recommended tentative operating.
Tentative, okay, so
Yes.
what,
But that's always been the case because we set kind of an operating budget, the common council finally approves. the budget.
okay, so we're not gonna discuss any of the things. for
Well,
tonight.
that's, again,
Okay.
now is the time for discussion.
If I may comment, I think that there were a tremendous number of very worthy, very interesting comments that I think it is due our time to leave, contemplate, think about what we have seen, and then think about how we might still consider adjusting the budget rather than just approving whatever we've seen. And despite us going through weeks and going through this thing line item by line item and hearing the entire public and all that they have to say, which I think there were a lot of very good comments, to just say, let's just put all that aside and we're gonna approve the budget as we started 3 months ago. I don't recall in my time on the BET, and I may be mistaken, that we have ever set the tentative budget now. We've done it in a meeting subsequent. We don't need to set the mill rates until May. We are at the middle of March. We still have time to take input from other people, contemplate what we've learned, and think about it. Because I personally have other distinct comments on this budget.
Thank you, Ms. Yang. Artie, you had a comment or a question?
I do have a comment. I tend to agree with Ms. Yang. I don't know what the point of this thing tonight was, if we're going to vote on the budget without having a full discussion, which means the budget implications on all of these things that they talked about, that people have talked about. The community hub, the $50,000 for the Board of Ed, the 1/3 reduction in the Norwalk transportation. I just don't really understand. My recollection from years past is that we have a discussion after this meeting, after the public meeting, to tweak and to incorporate the comments that the public made. I don't understand how we're in a position today to vote on something after having heard what we heard without having a chance to digest it and think about it.
Appreciate the comments. I am going by the agenda that the finance team had set for us as a board. Mr. Mayor.
Two things. Is there a time frame where we have to approve this? Because there usually is. Number two, are we at or under the cap set by the common council?
We're at the cap and the charter dictates April 1st for forwarding the tentative operating budget. I think the key word here is that it's tentative.
So, and this is the 26th and the 27th and 28th, then we have the weekend, the 29th and 30th. So Tuesday is the 1st of April, I believe.
Yes.
So that being said, we have to send this to the common council no later than April 1st.
Do we have a meeting on Monday?
When you say the operative word is tentative, what does that mean? Does that mean that we can go back and make adjustments, or as a body, as a board, or?
No. You can go back and make adjustments as long as they remain within the cap. Within the cap. Sure.
We can make line item adjustments.
Yes. And our intention with, what Robert presented, as well as any of those other items that were discussed as open items, was to look at those things. That's why we only had one item on the agenda, which was to approve the budget with some understanding of what's happening with some of those open items that were discussed, and not looking at those as individual pieces.
So
We do have, although there's not a operating budget meeting Monday night, there is a capital budget meeting, which we're gonna have to be there for with the Economic Development Committee, because they review each of the department's capital requests as part of the charter process. So we will, we will not be able to do anything on Monday evening,
So
if that was the intent.
a couple other clarifying points. Tentative budget, the ability to continue to make line item adjustments. At what point do we need to be pencils down on line item adjustments?
May 5th.
So we do have the opportunity if we agree to say directionally, the 3.3% is tentatively approved. I'm not moving to approve it. I'm not stating it's approved. We have the ability to say that number we can tentatively approve. And any line item, we have until May 1st.
May fifth.
May 5th.
May fifth is a date that you adopt the mill rates, and so as part of that.
Just the line.
He said it goes to the, it goes to the council and when they vote, it's over.
It goes to the council, and the council, if there's anything that, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. If there needed to be a change by the council, then they could make that change
Yeah.
in terms of the cap.
Oh, yeah, if we ask for above the cap, we come in at or below, there's no
There's-
action on the
there's no-
council's part.
correct.
They don't touch the operating budget.
That's correct.
Right.
Yep.
And the other thing, I just want to make a comment. I remember sitting through many meetings, going line by line by line for a lot of the departments. I think, Ms. Yang, when she said, you know, we just go ahead and vote on it, it makes it sound like we didn't do our due diligence. I think we had each department head come in, justify what they're asking. The Board of Education did the same. And we had an opportunity to look at those line items and ask questions and open items if we felt necessary. So I just want to make sure people don't think we didn't do our due diligence. We sat through many, many hours of meetings to get to this point.
I agree, Mr. Mayor. We sat through many hours of meetings and I believe I was at every single one of them. And we listened. And so typically one would think we listen, we weren't. Then we would come back and then we can debate it as a whole as to where some of the numbers can come up, some of the numbers can come down. We talked about open items. We did not vote specifically on open items. A yay or nay on certain open items. And so yes, we did our due diligence, and I would like to take that due diligence, analyze it, think about it, think and incorporate everything that we've heard here, and then come back and debate it, just like we had in the past. I am not ready to say, yes, I agree with what we started with.
That's fine, Mr. Gilbert.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a couple of points. Yes, we did do our due diligence, Mr. Mayor. I was at every meeting. We did discuss them, and you're right. We never did. We looked at the open items the other night, but we didn't really say vote, yay or no. I just asked Jared tonight about something I was interested in under the transit system tonight. So I think we're out there in the open, but I think we still have to just close the loop on the open items. I'm willing to, well, I don't know what the timing is, but I think conceptually, I'm okay with approving this, subject to following up with a more formal discussion on the open items. And the other thing I have to say, we had a great meeting tonight. I love hearing from the residents, but I just noticed not one person mentioned the fact that we spent $500 million close to on these new schools in the town for the education. So I just want to keep mentioning that to people that, you know, you don't have to drive far around Norwalk to see the brand new buildings that we have really invested. And the number one line beside the Board of Education is the finance expense and the debt service. And that's as a result of what we're doing. And we do have guardrails. Unfortunately, I'd love to give everybody 30%. But the guardrails and keeping this city at a AAA rating, which is one of, I think, from we were told by the bond council last year, we're one of 10, I think, in the state of Connecticut. It's pretty admirable. And by keeping that, it just keeps the city on the right pace. Once again, so I agree with conceptually with approving this, but I do say subject to finishing up on the open items or any other things that people might want to discuss on reducing the budget.
And I'm fine with that. I would agree with that as well. You know, we have the time. Unfortunately, we are up against a legal requirement to set a tentative budget on April 1st. Tentative budget, that's the bottom line number. We can then come together on any one of the line items as we look to refine how that budget is allocated across the departments.
But at that point of time, we have no opportunity to say we want to do something less than the 3.3%.
You can,
Yes, we can.
you just can't exceed the cap.
We do.
No,
Until May
no,
25th.
no, because if this is a tentative operating budget that's then going to go to the Common Council for approval, then we've approved the budget.
We approved the
We approved the
The cap,
bottom line, we
basically.
have not approved the.
it's the
line.
cap that
You are
we're
correct.
approving.
But we have approved, we've approved the taxation rate by which the mill rate will be set.
Not yet.
No, there will be adjustments to the mill rate and to assessments that'll happen on May 5th as a result of finalizing grand lists and those kinds of things.
So if I come in and I say, I don't think it should be 3.5%. I think we should be at 2.5%, because as Troy mentioned, we are committed to $400 million of capital expense. We have the budgets are going to increase. And as far as I've seen on our debt waterfall, at the end of this year, we are this close to losing our bond rating. And AAA bond rating. And we still have to account for $100 million of our own money that's up and above any of the capital that we've discussed. I don't know where that's going to come from. It's going to come from the taxpayer's pocket. And it's going to come from our rating, which will then waterfall into even higher interest expense.
But this vote is tonight.
We're coming.
No, this vote, we're not going to be able to change. We're not going to be able to change the 3.3%.
But you can vote no tonight.
Yes, I
You're doing
can.
it. Okay, that's what this vote
Sure.
is, yeah. But in years past, we used to be under the cap, and so we had room to go over the open items and add or subtract, but this year we're at the cap.
Correct.
So there's really very little wiggle room at all.
And even, with the open items, if we approve them, we'd be above the cap.
Right.
That's right.
So this is sort of
Like
an anomaly.
Well, no,
Based
so
years
for
past.
example, Harbor Commission is still in there at 10,000. And I know there's some discussion
Oh, they
about
are. Okay.
cutting that.
Oh, I see. I see. I see.
Several people mentioned the transit district at 1/3 cut. We don't have that. We have it from 661 to 611. It's a $50,000 cut, which was our recommendation.
I see.
We never
Okay, I
finalized
understand.
that additional $200,000.
Okay, all right. So we can still go back and,
Where we are right now, we are at the cap if we don't touch anything.
okay, fair enough. All right,
So we
then
can
I'll go back.
Yes. All right, so with that, this has been moved for a vote. I'm calling for a vote at this point to approve the bottom line operating budget at 3.3% increase year to year, or $450,481,977,000. All in favor of approving the tentative operating budget, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved 6-1.
And if I may have for the record, my opposition is not to the number, it's to this process by which we have not been able to discuss the overall number in the overall context of the fiscal health and future of the city of Norwalk.
Thank you, and so noted. With that, can I get a motion to adjourn,
Motion
please?
to adjourn?
So moved, we are all adjourned. Thank you very much.